Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destination all season long at Wild Wild West, Tropicana, and Harrah's Resort, Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. It is Football at 4. Andrew DiCecco is here to break everything down that he saw in that Eagles game. He was there at Lincoln Financial Field on Sunday. Got a better vantage point than the rest of us to see what happened, what were some of the breakdowns, what were some of the positives, and what were some of the negatives. And he joins us right now here for Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Andrew, welcome back, man. How you been?
I'm doing well, Mike. How are you?
All's good, man. So you got a nice vantage point to see some of the pluses and the minuses of that game on Sunday. And I guess let's start with what you saw defensively. Kind of give us a bird's eye view of Jonathan Gannon's defense and some of the issues that they're having.
Well, he's protecting against the big play, and obviously Jim Schwartz would leave his corners on an island, and he would bring a safety down to defend the run. He's selling out to prevent the big plays over the top that had beaten the Eagles so resoundingly over the years, and now what you're saying is they just don't have they just don't have the personnel to defend the run, because the way it works is you have your defensive line ideally keeps the linebackers clean, which they're not able to do, and the Eagles don't have the size of the linebacker position for them to really come downhill and fill those gaps and play the run adequately. So they're more of the rangy sideline-to-sideline guys, but they're not really adept at coming up and playing the run and getting physical. So in my opinion, I would expect to see a little bit more TJ Edwards moving forward. But, I mean, as of now, I don't know what he can do to alter his scheme, Mike, because you're not going to find any reinforcements 4 weeks into the season. I just don't think he has the personnel. I mean, this was always going to be a gradual process, right? I mean, the expectation should have always been tempered. He's really trying to implement a scheme in the middle of, in the mid of a transition season, and I don't think he has the personnel in which to do so. So now what you have to do if you're him is this obviously can't continue. So you have to figure out how you're going to utilize the personnel that you do have and put them in position to make some plays and fill these gaps and, stop the bleeding a little bit, or teams are going to continuously keep going after them against the run. It's a copycat league.
Right. So you mentioned that the linebackers, obviously it's not a priority position, but in this defense, if Jonathan Gannon's your defensive coordinator, does that have to change?
Yeah, I mean, you obviously need to prioritize the linebacker position. I mean, Jonathan Gannon had the luxury of having a Darius Leonard, who is a freakishly athletic player that can do a little bit of everything. But then you come here and you're asking linebackers who are really best suited to be 3s and 4s on most teams to be 1s and 2s. And there are a lot of them are undrafted, or you have a guy like Davion Taylor that was a former 3rd-round pick, and he played 9 snaps on defense last week. I mean, you have to shake something up or try something different, because Eric Wilson can't keep getting the lion's share of the snaps. Alex Singleton's a nice player. I think his role is he should probably be a 3rd linebacker to come in fresh and run around the field and make those tackles. But they simply don't have the personnel right now. But I think moving forward into the offseason, you have to reassess what you have here and really alter your view on the position as a whole, because something needs to be done here. I also think that safety has been a big issue and continues to be. You keep trying to patchwork fill it with these veteran free agents and the Anderson Dejos, the Anthony Harrises, and the cast-offs like the Marcus Epps's, and Kayvon Wallace hasn't quite panned out yet. So eventually you have to get bona fide starters at these positions, or teams are going to continuously find success going after those areas.
Yeah, so let's get your take. Everybody seems to be talking about Fletcher Cox and what's going on with him. Is he struggling, or is he a product of the fact that teams are saying, all right, well, you guys are going to play your safeties back, your linebackers aren't very good, so let's double the best player you got and make him and kind of nullify him?
Well, from my viewpoint, has he been getting double teams? Sure, of course. I mean, he's Fletcher Cox. He's commanded double teams for a number of years. He's been a dominant player. But I'll also say that the double teams have not been as frequent. And when he is double teamed, he's been double teamed in the past, and he's been able to find a way to pour through it. That's what made him such a dominant player and one of the best defensive tackles in football. And now you're not seeing that. I also, not to make excuses for him, but I do think that a lot of it has to do with him playing so many snaps over the years. Remember, he really was the constant at the defensive tackle spot. He had sidekicks that were supposed to be playing alongside him, like Tim Jernigan, who was in and out of the lineup. And you had guys like Destiny Vial and Bill Allen and all these T.Y. McGill over the years, Bruce Hector. So he really had to be out there, and he's logged a ton of snaps, and he's been fending off double teams for years. And I honestly think it's a product of the player being a year older and just starting to wear down a little bit. He doesn't necessarily have that motor that he had earlier in his career.
Yeah, I know that next to him, you got Hargrave playing at an unbelievable level. So you do have him playing well. Fletcher Cox, we'll see. He got up to a slow start last year and kind of turned some things around. But what about the end position? What are you seeing on how, number one, they are compensating for the loss of Brandon Graham? And obviously it seems that they're not getting the production that they would hope from the other guys there. You got Kerrigan playing out of position. You've got Barnett, who's obviously been getting the penalties. Sweat had a rough day with penalties. What does the end position look like from your vantage point?
Well, I think a lot of folks really now they appreciate what Brandon Graham really brought as a run defender and as an anchoring, just the strong, stout player at the point of attack for all these years. I think that sort of got taken for granted, and now you're seeing a lot of players who don't have that size or the strength or the power to hold up and be an anchor. You have, Josh Schwartz, a great pass rusher, the best pure pass rusher on the roster, but he's not equipped to be someone that's going to, hold his own and defend the run. And Barnett is someone who's also a little bit undersized, and these guys aren't going to be able to set the edge regularly. And they rush up the field and they create a lot of they create lanes for running backs and for pockets for quarterbacks to stand up in, and they get up the field pretty quickly. They're quick guys. They're undersized, but they're not going to be able to hold their own against the run. So, like I said, you're not going to find any reinforcements. So now it's up to Jonathan Gannon to figure out how can we align these guys? How can we make it so? Whether it's playing Milton Williams more at defensive end, he's got some size to him. You're going to sacrifice a lot of athleticism and pass rush prowess in that regard, but you have to do something here because teams are going to continue to bleed the clock on this team. They have to figure it out, and they're going to have to figure it out in a hurry.
Yeah, Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4, is with us here. There was an interesting exchange today with Jonathan Gannon. I think Jeff McClain asked him about playing dime. He says, well, we don't believe in that right now. There was a play in the red zone where he's essentially got a linebacker lined up on Tyreek Hill. I mean, that's a play that you just can't. Yeah. You're not winning that battle. But Gannon says we're not a dime team. We like to play our 4 down and 2 linebackers. I'm not really going to get into schematics, but he says I don't believe in being a dime team right now. Should they be more of a dime team in certain situations?
Yeah, you have a corner that you drafted in Zach McPherson that performed pretty well in training camp and had a decent start to the preseason. You're really the way that he answered that, he was obviously protecting his players. That's not our scheme right now. You're essentially saying that we don't have the personnel, and you're going to continue to do this and roll out, sacrifice a linebacker on a wide receiver because you don't have the personnel to effectively run it, and you think it's going to be a liability. Now, that's a problem. That's a clear problem. Every NFL defense should be able to function and be able to play dime. That's a pretty basic function of most defenses. The fact that he can't do that, obviously he didn't want to throw any of his personnel under the bus, but he kind of answered the question without answering it in a way. So all right, it's going to continue to be a problem.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, they don't really have, people keep saying, especially with the penalties, like, okay, you got to bench Derek Barnett. You got to make an example of him. well, they don't really have a lot of answers. They certainly don't have, if they play TJ Edwards, at linebacker, does that help them in the running situation?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what you're going to see. I think moving forward, he's going to have to see an uptick in snaps because of his skill set. Now, doing that, teams are going to eventually take notice, and they're going to make TJ Edwards defend in space, and that's not his strong suit. So that it's really tough to be a one-dimensional player at any position, especially now that, they have to use him. They have to do anything that they can to fill these gaps and defend the run. But at the same time, teams are going to catch on in a hurry, and they're going to isolate TJ Edwards, and that's going to present a new set of problems.
Yeah, that's that's the chess match. You put Edwards on the field, all right, we'll get our linebacker and running back matched up against him. You take him off the field, now you're going to get a heavy dose of running the football. So that's where the Eagles kind of, just not valuing the linebackers and just throwing guys in there. It is going to be a chess match all year. And right now, the last 2 weeks, they're losing that chess match. Andrew DiCecco is with us. Let's flip to offense. Over at InsideTheBirds.com, you wrote about how finally, I won't say finally, because I think Smith has had some moments, especially in the first week. But this seemed to be, a more complete game for Devonta Smith. And we're starting to see him and Hurts, it seems like. And I thought they schemed him a lot better to get him the ball more.
Yeah, they sure did. And I think that what you're saying is, the moment Devonta Smith was drafted, make no bones about it, he was the Eagles' polished and refined wide receiver instantly without even, a single practice under his belt. He just has a well-rounded route tree. He runs routes like a pro, like a veteran, and he just has a great feel for finding the soft spots and zones, and he can affect all three levels of the field. His releases are very efficient. I think there was much, all that talk about his slight build and everything was much ado about nothing. He's a complete wide receiver. Is he someone that's going to win many of those contested balls? No, and that's not what he's here for. But I think that what you're saying is he's starting to really come into his own, and that continuity with Jalen Hurts are really reestablishing that. And he could have had 160 yards had it been for that, had he not drifted out of bounds slightly on that touchdown down that left sideline. He had an explosive game, and those are the matchups you really want to see a first-round receiver win. The Chiefs don't have a great secondary, and I thought that Devonta Smith did a great job, and Jalen Hurts finding him and getting him involved in the offense because he's had opportunities, Mike, over the past couple of weeks. If you go back and watch, he has no problem getting open. It's more of he's not someone that has trouble getting open, but I think the quarterback needs to do a better job scanning the field and finding ways to get him involved. And I think also on the same side of that, the coaches need to continue to do a good job of scheming him open because you saw the damage that he can cause and the problems he can present for opposing defenses. So, it's definitely promising, and they're really going to need Devonta Smith, obviously, moving forward with the tough slate of games over the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4. I want to get your take then on the way they're using the running backs and what's the message there, because it seems Peterson didn't use Sanders a whole heck of a lot, and people said, why aren't you using Sanders? He's your best weapon. Why don't you use Sanders? Now this new staff, they're not using Sanders. Is the message that maybe these coaches don't think Sanders is all that good?
I think that's fair to say. Miles Sanders is, by all accounts, he's healthy. That's not the issue. I think that when he's gotten some opportunities, particularly I noticed it on Sunday, that he did a little bit of dancing. It seemed like he was pressing a little bit. There was opportunities to really churn out some yards there. Kenny Gainwell didn't have that problem. I think what you're really seeing is that I think they like both players, and they're trying to find that balance and have that 1-2 tandem like you see all around the NFL. Only now you're seeing a 1-2 tandem on a team that doesn't particularly value the running game as much. So it's gonna feel like you don't see Miles Sanders much. It's gonna feel like he's making a cameo role. There's opportunities to get him involved in the passing game, which I think they need to continue to do more. Miles Sanders is a good running back. He can provide a lot of value and be an asset to your offense. And I think that when you have a quarterback like Jalen Hurts, who really needs to get in the flow of the game with those short, quick passes and that quick decision making, I think that you need to find a way to continue to keep Miles Sanders involved, which is ultimately going to keep him engaged. And you do have two running backs that really complement each other quite well. Now you got to use them consistently.
Yeah, I know Gainwell, who had 89 yards and a touchdown, he outproduced Sanders 47 yards total against the Chiefs. And you wonder, they usually have Gainwell in 2-minute offense. They seem to have him in the red zone. And you just wonder if, that is more of Sirianni's guy than Sanders is. And because he seems to be getting higher leverage situations and more touches.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to really know what to make of it. I'm not a big fan of speculating as to why. We still need to find out more about the usage. Obviously, he's been used in critical moments. Kenny Gainwell, I think they like his situational awareness, particularly in those 2-minute situations. He catches the football well. He's just a smart player. I think he gets downhill. He doesn't fool around a lot at the line of scrimmage. And he goes straight ahead with a full head of steam, and he's not easy to bring down despite his slight build. He generates a little bit of power when he gets his momentum moving forward and accelerates. So there's a lot to like about Kenny Gainwell. I think Miles, the one thing you don't want to see from Miles is you don't want to see him pressing when he does get his opportunities, which is something that I sort of took away from that, is that you're seeing him sort of, okay, I will get X amount of opportunities. I got to make the big play.
Yeah.
Whereas Kenny Gainwell really takes what the defense gives him, and he just doesn't do a whole lot of dancing, and just hits the gap and shoots the gap, and falls ahead for positive yards. And I think that the more he continues to do that, the more the coaches are going to continue to trend in his direction a little bit more, and you might see a slight shift in the touches.
Now, you wrote about this over at InsideTheBirds.com. Andrew DiCecco is with us at DiCecco NFL. About what Nick Sirianni said about Jalen Hurts, and Hurts kind of answered, look, we're closer than you think. We didn't win, because Sirianni said, hey, that's the best I've seen a quarterback play, and I've coached some other good ones, in San Diego and in Indianapolis, and he's saying this is a great one. You were there. When you watch Hurts, were you watching a guy play at a top level?
At times, yeah. I mean, I think that Nick may have been a prisoner in the moment, but I mean, there was a lot to like and a lot of positives to take away from Jalen Hurts' performance. And I think that sort of gets lost in getting off to the start that the Eagles have is, you're seeing a quarterback really sort of grow up and use that adversity from the previous week and learn from that and grow from that. It's not going to be instantaneous. It is going to be a gradual progression, but you want to see those signs of a quarterback who's making those adjustments and making those improvements. And I thought that the game plan, for one, really catered to his strengths as a quarterback, which is getting the ball out quickly. And Jalen did a good job with his decision-making and protecting the football and hanging in the pocket a little bit more and not being so quick to improvise and create yards with his legs. You feel like you have to. Just really take what the defense is giving you, get into a rhythm, and you saw the rhythm that he got in on that first drive. That's what I think is the key for him, and finding that balance. I mean, obviously, I think they could still run the football more to take a little bit of pressure off of him, off of Jalen. But I thought that he really is showing signs of a quarterback that's growing. And the signs are very promising. I mean, you might got to remember there were 3 touchdowns taken off the board that he also accounted for. And I thought when nobody really gave the Eagles a chance, I thought that he really did his part and generated a lot of offense. Now, there were certain throws, like the one on that first drive that he sailed the end zone that should have been a touchdown. The one to Greg Ward in the opposite end zone, you can some say it was on the receiver, some say it was on the quarterback. Looked a little wide, but I mean, Greg Ward obviously still has to catch that. There's some throws that are still erratic with Jalen, and I still would like to see him scan the field and be more patient and look off his first read and do certain things. And I think that's going to come in time. I mean, he has shown signs, and I think that's promising and needs to be recognized.
Hey, Andrew, I guess the last thing we got to take a look at is how that Eagles offensive line looked. Last year, 4 out of 5 starters missed, and it wasn't pretty. Did we see a offensive line much more equipped to handle the injuries this time around?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely did, and I think that's something, again, just like Jalen Hurts' performance, I think the offensive line's performance is another thing that got sort of lost in the shuffle But they really acquitted themselves well. I mean, you get that news before the game that Lane Johnson was out, caught everybody by surprise. But guess what? Jack Driscoll plugged in at right tackle, and he played well. You have Nate Herbig who jumped in there. Landon Dickerson looked improved from a week ago, and Andre Dillard. I mean, when Jason Kelsey is your last man standing, I thought that the line did enough to give Jalen enough time. And I thought that they got into the rhythm of the offense much like the quarterback did. So you got to give credit, tip your hat to Jeff Stoutland for getting these guys prepared. You also have to give the linemen credit for preparing themselves and taking those steps to improve, because these guys logged a ton of snaps last year and they went through those growing pains. Now you weren't necessarily seeing those growing pains because they have that experience. So I think that's a testament to their work ethic and their preparation.
Andrew's back on Thursday. He'll give us thoughts on the Eagles' matchup with Carolina and where they match up well. The Carolina Panthers, very good defensive team. We'll see the offense. Sam Darnold, they got some weapons down there. 3-1 Panthers against Philadelphia. That's on Sunday right here. Andrew DiCecco. Football at 4. We do it each and every day. Mosher's here tomorrow. Andrew's back on Thursday, and Adam is here on Friday. Andrew DiCecco, everybody. Good stuff. Andrew, appreciate it, man.
You got it, man. Talk to you Thursday.
And there's Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4 here, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast.